Hi everyone, Jeffrey here again. Today is Thursday, April 9th, 2020. We are well into our shelter in place around the world for COVID-19. I hope everyone's staying safe and healthy. As I said in another video, I am purposely choosing not to prognosticate or weigh in specifically on spreading out information on the pandemic. Specifically, there are enough resources and sources out there from actual subject matter experts that I don't need to sit here and film a video to tell you about universal precautions and hand washing and should we wear masks, should we wear gloves. I don't need to do that. There's enough people out there doing that. What we should do is listen to the experts, listen to the World Health Organization, the CDC, or your specific government public health authority. On that note, one topic that I did want to talk about from a human resources standpoint in regards to the current pandemic, one thing I'm really noticing from a lot of people within my social network, those of you that know me, I work specifically in the cruise line industry, but I've worked for large airlines, I've worked for non-transportation companies in the world of human resources, and there's one common thing that I've noticed during any incident or emergency or any time that your workforce and your employee group are put under stress, the one thing, that straw that could break the camel's back, that takes employee satisfaction from here crashing into the basement is communication, or specifically lack thereof or poor communication. I'm hearing a lot from some of my colleagues out at sea on various cruise lines, some that I've represented and others that I have not, and it's fascinating to me the vessels out there where there's no guests on board, it's just crew, and it can be several hundred crew, up to a couple thousand crew members that are on board, and they're in various states of isolation. They're not in port, or they're not going to port, or if they are in port, no one's allowed to get off the vessel. So that's one thing that can create a bit more of a claustrophobic environment, or that feeling of isolation. Or there's no space in port. They're not being allowed in, so ships are anchored off of the coast for days and days and days. Again, that can be a negative effect on just overall morale, but also mental health. So ships often operate as what's called IBCs, or independent business centers, or independent business units, IBUs. That is a term you may or may not be familiar with, but I like to think of every ship, even though it's under one parent brand, every ship is almost like its own company, with the captain as the president and CEO, and then he or she filters and cascades all rules, knowledge, information, and news down to his or her executive team. They continue to communicate down into their senior managers, department and division directors, and then that information continues to trickle. But where things tend to go awry, and again what I'm seeing, is that there are employees that feel totally out of the loop. They feel completely ignored or not included, and frankly, they have no idea what's happening out there. That's concerning because it's totally avoidable. So if you're a leader out there or a manager, whether you're in the cruise line industry or not, we know from a human factor standpoint that especially when we're not in normal operations, the most important thing that we do is communicate. We learn this in the airline industry. Pilots are trained specifically, as are flight attendants, during an emergency, how to communicate something, how to message it, to not create panic, but keep people informed. The number one complaint heard from airline passengers after an emergency is usually they had no idea what was going on, or they didn't feel that they were confident in the crew's ability to handle the emergency because they weren't hearing anything. There's a variety of factors that might happen, and sometimes it's justified. I'm not going to go into that, but often some of those mishaps are totally avoidable. Again, during this pandemic situation, there's absolutely no reason why we cannot provide daily, sometimes multiple times a day, communication to employees. It can come in many forms. It can be an email blast. It can be through employee groups on social media, or in the case of a ship or an airliner, an announcement or a public address. This messaging should start from the top, or as close to the top as possible, and then be cascaded. Again, where I see cruise ship employees doing well, happy, and although not ideal, they're okay with the situation, are those ships that are getting daily public address announcements from the captain, from the hotel director, from the chief engineer, from the HR director on board. in some cases from the ship's senior doctor, from the cruise director. Those ships that have the ability to utilize the in-cabin or in-stateroom TVs, it's not difficult to quickly film and put up videos. They don't have to be PA announcements. Film yourself. Have those videos playing on a loop. Employees know where those channels are, and again, that's useful information. A question I often hear, or sometimes a bit of a pushback, is, what if I have no new information to share? That's okay. Sometimes no news is good news. But again, as we learn on airplanes and in emergency situations, if you don't have anything new to say that. Film a video, make a PA announcement and say, ladies and gentlemen, or folks, I wanted to provide you an update for today. I don't have any new information. Here are the questions or the requests that we've submitted to Shoreside, to the Health Authority, to the Port Authority, to the Coast Guard. We're waiting to hear back on that, and as soon as we have an answer, we'll provide that to you. You can still communicate, even when you don't have anything new to say. At least your employees will know, okay, they're providing us as up-to-date information as they can or that they have access to. They'll let us know when they have that information. It reduces stress levels. It lets employees know that you're doing absolutely everything in your power to be transparent. And that, again, will enhance morale and just enhance overall comfort and well-being. It costs us nothing to do. So I cannot stress enough the importance of timely, useful communication to your employees. When you have information that's not great news, it's so much better to just be honest. Don't pad it, but also don't blame. That helps no one. Okay, tell them, I have an update for everybody on board, or I have an update for everybody in the work group. It's not great. It's not ideal, but here's what we know right now. Say that, because what that also shows is your humble side. It shows, you know what, we're all in this together. I wish I had great news. I don't have the best news. Here's where it is. Then tell them where we go from here. Okay, so the news we have right now is not what we wanted to hear. Here are the steps that we're going to put in place, or here are the mitigating factors, or here's what we're going to do to address this. Again, it costs us nothing. So make sure that we're communicating to the crew. Make it easy for them. Make Wi-Fi free and easily accessible. Make communication easy and accessible. Allow them to make long-distance phone calls to their friends and family and their loved one back home. People are worried. So share that communication. And communicate. Again, I can't stress that enough. That's probably my number one takeaway from this last week. We're hitting that month mark where people are really starting to get stir crazy. They're feeling the woes of that isolation. And when they don't know what's happening, they blame the person or the thing that's closest to them. That could be you as a manager or leader, or it could be the entire corporation. And employees these days in 2020 will not hesitate to go to social media, to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and plead their case. Right? You don't want to necessarily look bad. Well, let me put it this way. Nobody wants to look bad. We all want to do the right thing. So do the right thing. Don't have to now backpedal or put out a fire that was totally unnecessary in the first place. So that's really it for me as far as looking at what's happening with COVID-19 from an HR perspective. My number one recommendation for all of you that are leading out there is communicate. It costs you nothing. If you do it poorly or don't do it all, it'll cost you a lot. That's it for me. Most importantly as well, stay healthy, stay safe. Bye for now.